Good morning and welcome to a County Commission meeting Tuesday, October 26. I think we have Pastor Bryan Moore here, sir. I'm not sure if we have sound in the building, but I believe we're still recording.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to do this. We appreciate it. On behalf of East Coast Christian Center, thank you for all that you guys are doing and leading our community. And let's pray. Father, we thank you for the just the opportunity to really just to honor you with our lives. Thanks for leadership. Thanks for direction. God, I just pray over our commissioners and pray over our community today. And we're thankful for the season you're walking us through. Thanks for leading us and guiding us. Thanks for being a good shepherd, being good all the time. Thanks for wisdom from heaven. You say give it to us liberally, and so I thank you for just an abundant amount of wisdom today for our leaders. Thank you for compassion. Thank you for opportunities to lead a community, and it's an honor to do it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
If you would, yes. We have a quorum. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Before we start, though, I have to remember we need to make a motion to include Commissioner Lober, who's on the phone. Got a motion by Commissioner Smith. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Zonka. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner Lober, I was a little concerned for a second. We were going to have a second. If we would all please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, I have 3 sets of minutes that need approved. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Zonka, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to move into resolutions. Mr. Stuart Smith, are you here, sir? Stuart Smith, are you here? Okay, we might come back to that later. Commissioner Tobia, sir, you have a resolution?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And though I'm the one presenting this, I'm sure no pressure for everyone to vote for this, but I'm sure this is coming from the entire board up here. I'm going to read a resolution here in a minute, but first, I personally want to take a second and thank Ms. Bentley for all her wise counsel from the beginning. And it's a bit ironic that I'm the one doing this, because I'm sure she recalls that I was the one nay vote for her selection here as the county attorney. And that, of any of the votes I've made, is without a doubt the one that I regret the most. I quickly came to trust her judgment, as many times as she told me no, I could not do that. And I appreciate her willingness to tell me just why. In fact, she even won cases that I was hoping that she would lose. That, of course, being the Charter Cap case in LSV, Brevard County Board of County Commissioners. In addition, she is someone that I am glad to call a friend, and I hope to continue her friendship at the end of her tenure here. I do have one last request, a legal request, on behalf of 4 anonymous colleagues. My legal question I pose to you is, why am I allowed to tell the sheriff no if he asks to search my car, but I have to tell him yes when he asks for a $100 million budget? So with that, I'd like to read the resolution, Madam Chair. Whereas Ms. Eden Bentley has provided sound counsel to the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners in various capacities since 1986, and whereas upon her elevation to county attorney in 2018, Ms. Bentley became the first female county attorney selected in Brevard County history. Whereas Ms. Bentley was admitted to the Florida Bar on October 27th, 1983, after graduating from the University of Florida College of Levin, go Gators. Whereas Ms. Bentley is board certified in the area. It doesn't say that. I wanted to. Oh, okay. Yeah. Real estate. That was not. I got an anonymous text last night at 7:30. Sorry, whereas her contribution to the county are quite literally immeasurable due to her sheer breadth of her career, having worked to protect the interest of the county in matters including but certainly not limited to land use, countless road project, utility projects, environmental law, business transaction, emergency powers, labor law, taxation, ethics, and whereas Ms. Bentley is associated with the Florida Supreme Court landmark decision in Brevard County versus Snyder, in which the court turned the world of land use and zoning in Florida on its head, converting zoning decisions into quasi-judicial proceedings. You know, someone else in my office wrote this, not me, to the exclusion of legislative determinations by city councils and county commissioners. Whereas Ms. Bentley's reputation of providing level-headed, detail-oriented advice is well-deserved, and whereas Ms. Bentley has litigated many critical cases on behalf of the county, always doing so with the utmost skill and professionalism, whereas she spent many hours at Brevard meetings keeping a straight face while witnessing such presentations involving live tortoises, visits from Santa Claus, hawks, giant dogs, commissioners' outrageous outfits such as pirates, farmers, a mime, and a certain housing and human service director's loud yet tasteful suits, Miss United States, bin full of allegedly carcinogenic garbage yoga performances, and claims that North Koreans would spy on citizens through sonar. And whereas Ms. Bentley is now ending her career having helped guide the county through several stages of an unprecedented public health emergency, whereas she accomplished all of these things and much more in a fiscally responsible way while earning the respect of colleagues. And whereas Ms. Bentley, expert advice will be sorely missed in the years come by all members of the Brevard County Commission. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Brevard County Board of County Commissioners hereby recognizes that Eden Bentley for outstanding legal advice and wise counsel on behalf of Brevard County, and congratulates her on her retirement, done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 26th day of October 2021. That's the resolution, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I would like to add one thing, and that is she was able to keep a straight face whenever she was dealing with us.
Well, a few of you.
Motion to accept, Madam Chair.
A motion
Second.
by Commissioner Tobias, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Ms. Bentley, you are so loved here, and you're going to be greatly missed. I was actually concerned when we had to replace Scott Knox, but man, you filled those shoes and then some, and you're just wonderful. You're delightful, you're a kind person, and we're going to miss you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
And I want to thank you, I mean, not just for being a professional and giving us information quickly and expeditiously. I mean, you're the most thorough attorney that I've ever worked with, and, you know, probably to your own detriment, because we question everything that we do up here, but we want to make sure all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted. But thank you. Thank you for being just an amazing person, and I appreciate you. And I'm going to miss you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we go up for a picture?
That would be wonderful. Probably shouldn't mention this here, but if you notice, Miss Bentley's wearing a cast. She was out, well, it's not really skateboarding because it only has one wheel. And she was out doing that little one wheel thing, which most of us decided we can't even balance on. And she flew across the pavement and crashed.
Crashed and burned.
Yeah. So that got me tickled in a way, but I'm sorry about the fall. We are going to move into consent items. Commissioners, do you have anything that wants to be pulled? I do have a few cards, but.
Yes, ma'am. I've got two of them.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to pull F11
Okay.
and F12, please.
Okay, sir. Anything
Thank
else? Anything else, commissioners? Okay, I have cards on F9, 11, 12, and 18. So I'm going to go, questions only on 9, so we're good there. So, Ms. Sullivan, if you wouldn't mind, first of all, Commissioner Lober, do you want to go ahead and talk about item F11, sir?
Sure. If you'd like to do it in that order, I'm fine doing that.
I think that's the one you want it pulled, correct?
11 and 12, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So if you want to start with 11, that would be wonderful.
Okay, and just as a heads up, my concern with 11 is the same as the concern with 12, so truly it'll be addressing both of them at once. I think these are both good ideas. The only concern that I have is who's having to pay for it. The fact is, to my understanding, we have one entity that has a contract with the county which makes disproportionate use of the transfer facility, and without that entity making use of the transfer facility, we wouldn't have the need to boost the number of drivers, the amount of equipment that we have there. So I'm not saying it's inappropriate for us to pay something toward this, but I don't know that it's appropriate for us to pay the full bore cost. The alternative would be we could say to this other entity, listen, anyone that makes use of this transfer facility with more than X number of loads is going to have to go to the CDF and COCO. I think they could be brought to the table to defray some of the cost with both 11 and 12 because it's to their benefit to do so. So if you all want to pass it, I respect that. I think it's a good idea. I just don't like the funding mechanism.
Oh, okay, sir. Ms. Sandra Sullivan, are you here, ma'am? Are you good with going ahead and speaking on both these items together as well? Okay.
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. It's my understanding that this is due to Sarno running out of space reading the item. I've come to Brevard County Commissioner meetings more than any other resident over 3 years. No subject has had more discussion than the landfill. In May 18th meeting this year, it was said that there had been a 16% increase in waste the past year, and that Sarno dump was expected to run out this summer. It was also stated it would take 18 months to build the new 192 site. The Florida Recyclers deal would add 19 years to Sarno, but at a time had 18 deficiencies, including an issue with smell. It is very important to understand what the status is on the Florida Recyclers. You guys all knew this was coming, that we would run out of dump space, but it's been quiet for 5 months. What is not discussed is how this option to move trash from Sarno to Central Disposal Facility will shorten the life of the cocoa landfill. A few weeks ago, when Ann Samuelson called me, she said she talked to Walker Dawson, who said the muck from the Grand Canal dredging project is now going to the cocoa facility. I gather this would be because of exceedances of the contamination issues. So how does these two additional sources impact and shorten the life of the cocoa facility, which is more expensive type of dump lined with clay, in addition to additional year cost of $750,000 for transporting and 3 Mack trucks at $1.5 million, maybe more for both? So what is the real cost to Brevard residents for this mess? We just had an offensive 28% increase in garbage pickup. What was recently said by one commissioner, we'll have to pass along the costs to residents. And a 33% increase in fire, a solid waste increase as well. Welcome to inflation, Brevard. Will we see another hike on our trash rates with this? I suggest that if there is any way to salvage the deal with Florida Recyclers, as this adds 19 years to Sarno. I do not like this agenda item. I do not like how it hides the details, how it hides the actual costs. I do not like that it will be approved without the public knowing the costs, as well as the real costs with cocoa landfill with shortening its lifespan, but how much? Not only does this agenda item authorize the bid and awarding, but subsequent contracts and budget changes. The requested action should only be sent out for bid, but decisions should come back to this board for a decision with transparency to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, do we have any comments? Okay. Do I have a motion one way or the other?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Zonka. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Lober and objection. Can I have a motion for item F12 as well?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Zonka, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Lober and objection. I have one card on item F18. Ms. Sullivan, do you want to come and comment on that? And then we'll go ahead and pass the rest of the consent items.
Sandra Sullivan, South Patrick Shores. So given the priority of voters in Brevard with the half-cent sales tax for saving the lagoon, we're concerned about the decline of the Indian River Lagoon. I would ask that the county reevaluate the decision to increase spraying of herbicides from about 85,000 annually with aquatic vegetation management services for the past 3 years to 2.5 times that amount for 2 additional districts to $221,000. In addition to not being cost-effective bid, let's talk about the lagoon and the fact that retention ponds, ditches, canals, and other waterways being sprayed often drain to the lagoon. The problem with this is that several herbicides are known to kill seagrass, not to mention affecting the environment and health. Using mechanical harvesting has been discussed here in Brevard County Commissioners and sorrel meetings. Maybe the manatees can even eat the weeds harvested, with nearly 1,000 manatees lost this year to starvation. The herbicide levels in manatees also made the news. We need to ban herbicides near the lagoon. In 2008, the seagrass looked better than 1943. Since 2010, we have lost 98% of seagrass biomass, 58% loss compounded with thinning. Even where nutrient loading is good, Seagrass is dying, suggesting another factor at play, according to MRC. Scientific literature shows that some herbicides kill the seagrass. Banning herbicides use near the lagoon would be a cost-effective way to help save the lagoon. The decline began in 2010 when the state cost-saving switch from mechanical harvesting to herbicides began, which corresponds to the seagrass decline. Unfortunately, Florida Statute 487.051-2 preempts cities and counties from enacting any regulations restricting the use of pesticides, including herbicides. But you can at least decrease the use of herbicides as a county rather than increasing their use. In 2008, the seagrass looked better than 1943, and the lagoon was very resilient for recovery. That recovery was due to Florida Statute 403086, which required wastewater treatment conversion to AWT, preventing raw sewage from going to the lagoon regularly. By not using herbicides, we could see an equally strong recovery. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Chair, may I briefly?
Most certainly, sir.
And I will try to be brief. My voice is holding out so far, but I'm going to keep it that way, hopefully. So my thought with this is, as with a lot of things that we have to deal with, it's double-edged sword. There's good and there's bad with a lot of the decisions that we have to make. The question is, given the factors that would apply on both sides, where are we better off? I know for the northern part of my district on the island, and for the western part of my district on the mainland, and for some spotted areas throughout the rest of it, the fact is people's homes flood when we have anything approaching a named storm. And the issue that we have that the board has made, I think, rather reasonable efforts to address is that we don't have enough folks doing the ditch clear outs. We have the equipment for it, we just don't have the personnel. I know that Frank has made a number of efforts. I've spoken with Frank as recently as probably a month or so ago about what we can do to incentivize folks to get into these ditch cleaning crews that frankly aren't glamorous, that are probably rather miserable during the summer. But the problem is we can't seem to fill those spots, not at a reasonable cost level. So I would agree, all else equal, that we should try to avoid using pesticides or herbicides in areas that may end up going to the lagoon, or that certainly will end up going to the lagoon. But in the scheme of things, if it's allowing that to happen to some measurable or unmeasurable degree versus having these culverts blocked off, and I did a site visit with Mr. Denninghoff not too long ago to an area in my district where that was exactly the issue. The culverts were getting blocked off and water wasn't flowing, and lo and behold, when it drops from the sky, it will eventually flood houses. So to me, it's great to have a clean lagoon. I think that there are a lot of factors that go into it. I don't know that any one individual factor is going to cause it to rebound or to really drop into a worse position. But I think the need to keep houses from flooding is the greater need in my book. So I'm going to support the item. It's not that I don't share the concern that was expressed, but I think the overriding concern is keeping houses from flooding.
Thank you, sir. Real quick, is Mr. Stuart Smith here yet? Somebody with the National Veteran Small Business? All right, my request is, Commissioners, if we could go ahead and approve this resolution and the consent, and then I will get with him this week and give him the plaque. So can I have a motion to approve the consent items we haven't already approved, and including the resolution for small businesses?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Zonka, second by Commissioner Tobia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Moving into public comment, Ms. Sandra Sullivan.
I'm missing a page, sorry.
Yeah, I think we just did it all, right? All the consent.
Good morning, Sandra Sullivan.
I did it at the end.
So while not everyone cares that Brevard is the largest loggerhead sea turtle nesting in the world, and green sea turtles are 50% of nests in Brevard, making Brevard the key to survival of these species as well as endangered shorebirds. I think we can all agree that the lives of our coastal barrier island residents should be a priority, especially with resiliency prioritized by our state. So I received some new information since I was last here pertaining to State Statute 163.3, which protects our lives on the vulnerable barrier island for evacuation. Sorry. With a level of service of no more than 16 hours. We are 18 hours for evacuation, according to Eastern Central Regional Planning Council studies. Density was capped in 1999 as a condition of the FCT grant for Hightower and Pelican, of which the county is also bound to these terms. The city is not respecting the terms of the agreement. The county has the authority to enforce this at the municipal level since it affects unincorporated residents' lives in South Patrick Shores and Snug Harbor, as well as Patrick Space Force residents and service members. Consequences will be the loss of life if nothing is done to address the critical evacuation deficiency. The issue is not just the view that endangers our lives for evacuation on the vulnerable barrier island. It is also the intention of Satellite Beach to redevelop A1A as high density. Our lives are being endangered. In Brevard resiliency meetings, Sea Grant attorney noted he was hired by Satellite Beach to rewrite their comprehensive plan so they can redevelop the west side of A1A high density in response to sea level rise to stay viable as a city. The fallacy is that A1A is just as much as a flood zone as the west side of A1A because of the coastal element and the city's hardening of the coastline. In May of this year, D4 Commissioner Smith had instructed legal to write an agreement to release the covenants on Hightower and Pelican following the county legal opinion that the city's park. Why is our county commissioner supporting the city on a parking management plan that would shaft county residents to pay for parking while city residents pay nothing on parkland paid for by the county and given to the city at their request? So why, and this is a copy of that release. Why has nothing been done then to address the environmental and risk to lives being lost? Safety issue for evacuation of our residents. Recent with the hiring of husband of assistant city manager, appointments to boards and social events all raise a red flag.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have some handouts.
Thank you, ma'am. If you would just hand it to the clerk, and I'll have her hand it out just a little bit later. Okay. All right, I have Miss Courtney Barker.
I also have some handouts.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. I am here to basically give the truth against what Ms. Sullivan keeps coming up here every meeting and talking about. I gave you a packet today. Most of these comments have to do with the view. The view is one phase of a large PUD in Satellite Beach, which was the former base housing. That was a property that had 999 units of family housing, meaning it had to be occupied by a family. It's being replaced by mostly, especially the view side, single-family housing, 3 stories of, or 3 buildings of 8-story condos in a hotel. All of those, as we know, condominiums are not occupied full-time year-round. But primarily, the comments on the view started with the city did approve this development without public advertising. Their ordinance was wrong. We approved all that wrong. DEO sent letters saying, you're fine, city. This is a city issue, not a state issue. So then it turned into turtles. Now it went to, the turtles are going to get destroyed. We have an email in that packet from UCF saying most of what Ms. Sullivan is saying about the turtles is incorrect. Then it came to chloridane. I think for about a year, you all heard about chloridane on that site. Chloridane. It's contaminated with chloridane. Well, the base finally caved and went and had all that property tested for chloridane, and that test results are in your packet, which showed that there is no chloridane present on the site that is above the residential cleanup standards. Now you'll see some of the posts and emails that I'm getting copies of saying that the schools are over capacity. I provided the school district and highlighted the schools in Satellite Beach, which show none are over capacity, and the View has received all the concurrency permits they need to develop. And they are developing. Right now, they're building the site infrastructure. That project is not going to be stopped. It is going to be developed. Then now it's hurricane evacuation. I'd like to put this in perspective for people, for just the reality of hurricane evacuation and just evacuation in general. I have been through 8 hurricanes in this community while I lived in Satellite Beach, and never have I had a trouble getting off the island. We had a trouble getting back, waiting for the bridges to open, but we never had a problem getting off the island. This project is 219 units and 175 hotel units. To put that in perspective, Vieira, the last village that was approved, is 6,600 units of residential, 460,000 square feet of office space, 250 hotel rooms, and 600,000 square feet of commercial space. So that's the perspective. Now, right now, sorry.
Hold on just a minute. Commissioner Tobia, sir?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. As Ms. Barker represents more than 10,000 people in Satellite Beach, I'd ask that we extend her time an additional 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Is 3 minutes enough?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you. So to put that in perspective, just to give you an idea, the county commission, and you're right, as that you have in approving zoning, approved 33 units in South Patrick Shores in 2019. Haven't heard a word about that. In the Atlantic, or actually the city of Melbourne, in the city of Melbourne portion of the beach side, just approved a 135-unit hotel on the beach. Haven't heard a word about that. This property is across the street from the beach because the county commission partnered with the city of Satellite Beach to apply for an FCT grant to buy up the beach property and move the development west of A1A because we thought it was the responsible thing to do. For some reason, this development project has been rehashed over and over for 3 years. And it's still being rehashed even though it's being built right now. So I just want to make clear that to the community, I know you all know this, but to the community at large, everything that Ms. Sullivan is saying when she comes up here is completely untrue. We have the other issue too is the FCT grants. We're in violation of the FCT. There is literally a letter in your packet that shows from FCT that we are in complete compliance with our management plan and all the FCT regulations at Hightower as well as Pelican Beach Park. So we are not in violation of FCT. We are not in violation of the state. There is no corruption. The city council, just like the county commission, used their authority to approve zoning, which they did for a development project that is literally replacing development that was already there. There is no better way to develop property but to replace what's already there with new stormwater, with new sewer pipes, with new water pipes, with new roads. All of it is in compliance. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, make sure the community is aware of it, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Lober.
Just a couple of thoughts. I think Ms. Barker may have an idea in terms of where this is going. She really ought to. So I abhor hypocrisy. I hate it. It's one of the absolute worst things on the planet. To mention what Vieira's stats are when Vieira is not on a barrier island and doesn't have the same concerns with respect to causeways and evacuation is at best a red herring or at worst something quite a bit more misleading. I wasn't going to respond to it, but frankly, since we have the city manager here, I'm sure that she was aware of it. I can't imagine otherwise. There was an email that went out maybe a week or two ago to all of the county commissioners and all of the redistricting members in which a city council member of hers referred to Ms. Sullivan as a close contact of mine Now, mind you, I've never texted with Miss Sullivan. She doesn't have my cell number. She doesn't have my home number. She's never had a coffee or a beer with me. I've never had a lunch or a dinner with her. I've never met her at my office, at her office, if she even has one. I've never met her at her home. I've never met her at my home. I've never met her anywhere other than a duly noticed VOCC or TPO meeting, ever. So when folks want to take the moral high ground and point out that something someone has said is true or not true, it would help if individuals from that same entity weren't putting out either dishonest or tremendously misleading information. And if it were just one city council member, I might let that be and not say anything, but the assistant city manager over there has an objective documented history of lying, which if we want to get into it, I'm happy to get into it. I think that's a mistake on Satellite Beach's part if they want to go there, but if that's what they want to do, we can do that. So bottom line is, I think people need to be very careful on what they say, in that if they're making things up, expect that I'm going to call it out, because I just don't play that.
Okay, we get your point. I think you were just trying to clear that you did not have a relationship. That sounds bad, as far as emails.
Well,
I get you. You're
Madam Chair, if I have a close relationship with Ms. Sullivan, then I have an intimate relationship with several folks on
I'm
the
with
board,
you.
and I don't think we have an intimate relationship by any means.
No, of course you don't, and I don't think you hang out with her either. I really phrased that wrong, and I'm sorry, Commissioner Lober, you have my highest respect on that, so I get your point on that, sir. So, Commissioners, do we have any more comments? Okay, thank you, Ms. Barker. All right, we are moving into item I1.
Motion to approve I-1, ma'am.
Okay, good, because that's your district. Would you go ahead and tell us what it is real quick? And we have a motion to approve it.
Yes, ma'am. I-1 is a contract for sale and purchase from Carla Rodriguez. Her property is located in the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program in District 2. This is one of 4 lots that are located in the Silver Pine subdivision that are part of the FEMA Grant H0565 that this board previously approved. The appraised value of the lot is $175,000. FEMA will be paying 75% of the grant. The requested action today is that the board approve and authorize the chair to execute the attached contract for sale and purchase and statement of voluntary participation for acquisition of property for the purpose of open space. 2, authorize the chair to execute all required closing documents and other required FEMA grant documents related to this contract. And 3, for the board to authorize the county manager to sign all future contracts and any related contract documents, closing documents, and all other related FEMA grant documents included in FEMA grants H0564 and H0565.
Okay, and I have a motion by the commissioner of this district to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Tobia. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Commissioner Lober, just in case I didn't get that out right a minute ago, I just want everybody to know that I think you have complete integrity, sir. You always do what's on your heart to do what's best for your community, and as far as I'm concerned, your integrity is never a question with me, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Moving into item J1.
Good morning, Commission. Item J1 is a request to waive the unpaved road agreement as established in Section 62102C, where the applicant is seeking a waiver in order to construct a single-family home without constructing an unpaved road within the county right-of-way, without providing the maintenance for said roadway, and also without the requirement of entering into a proportionate share agreement for the assessment of the paving of the roadway. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. I have 2 cards on this, Mr. Stewart and Ms. Shannon. If you'd help me with that last name, it'd be great. Mr. Stewart, before you get started, I'm willing to table this right now for you without us having to make a motion on it, to allow you to take time to go get some engineering plans so that we can come to some kind of help to be able to help you on this. Once we make a motion, it might mess that up, but I'm willing to do that for you if you'd like right now to have more time. We'll table this and give you time to go get that engineering to see if this is possible to happen.
Okay, I think that's wise. I do just want to say that I have had a very hard time finding an engineer, and it's been very suspect the engineers that initially say they would be willing to help me come back later and say they can't, after supposedly speaking with Public Works to find out what's required. So I am having a very hard time finding an engineer that's willing to provide to me simply what Mr. Calkins told me I would need.
Okay, sir, I really like
So-
you. I think you're the nicest
Well,
guy.
I appreciate it. I
But
like you all,
I
too.
do have a hard time with that, though, because these guys are pretty straight up. My guess
Okay.
is it could be that it's such a small project that might be making it a little bit more difficult as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not accusing Public
Okay.
Works.
So
by
I'm
any
kind of
means.
hoping that somebody will even hear this today and come up to, and help you with this. I really would love for you to build your home.
Okay.
But there's so many things that are involving this right now that we have to make sure that we're not putting this burden on other taxpayers.
Okay,
So
understood.
that's my concern. Ms. Susan, did you want to add something to it, or Mr. Calkins?
We'll be happy to work with Mr. Stewart to get that accomplished. I think that, Madam Chair, is the board has had concern with the amount of roadways and the required maintenance for those. So we want to be careful on how we extend that out to obligate the board for future maintenance concerns.
Yes, sir. And, we had one of these come up a little while ago, and we denied it. We have all these properties out there, and it's typically one guy right now that's owning them all, and he's subdividing them all, and he's landlocking them when he does it. And so this is the problem we have, is trying to get access to those properties, especially with emergency vehicles that are appropriate to handle this growing area out there. So this is where I have to protect the other taxpayers as well. If it was just you, but it's a bunch of things going on out there, so we have a lot of things we have to go through. But if you're willing to table it, I'm willing to table this to allow you to have time to provide county staff engineering plans showing how the road can be constructed within the 30-foot right-of-way with additional easements of this right-of-way, including necessary improvements, road drainage, utilities. And staff can have the administrative authority at that time to approve the plans if it's something they can find that'll work, including a waiver of engineering standards should the proposal become acceptable to what they receive.
So would that be a road then built to road standards?
Well, something's going to have to be to the standards if that's what the engineer comes back with. But the thing is now, nobody knows because they don't have any information, and I can't put that on the taxpayers to do that.
Okay.
So if you could go do that, then we probably got something we can help you work with.
So then tabled maybe until what, next meeting?
Well, if
or-
we table this, I can give them authority to look at the items, and correct, Tad? And then they can help you through this, see if they can come up with something that'll help you get this accomplished.
So
Okay.
they'll have to come back.
Okay.
There's going to be some cost. Our goal is to
under-
make it the less cost we can for you.
I
and-
understand. I just can't afford to construct a road, along an existing road that's already used for agricultural reasons.
Well,
just to
it's
access
a
my home.
right-of-way, and there's so much to that. I mean, there's two houses there hooked up, and to start bringing in all these other properties have a potential of 12 other houses, actually, with the zoning that's there. But to build on AU, you have to be connected to a county road, so that's our problem. So I don't know, I still like the idea, if you would go seeing if you could buy a neighbor's area there, make a right-of-way. You could build a flag lot straight up. But
Yes.
other than that, this is our code, and there's a reason for it, because if you do this, all the other taxpayers have to pick up your cost to build your project. And I can't do that to other places, especially
So-
since all of Scottsmore is blowing up like this right now. And it's typically one guy that's subdividing all his property and making this mess.
I'm not involved in that situation.
I know.
The parcel that I'm purchasing is not being subdivided by the definition in state statute. It is not a subdivision.
Well,
So that is a
I just,
separate-
substance over form, I kind of disagree with you. I really want you to be able to build there. You might want to pull back on purchasing it until this can be worked out to make sure that you can afford all this on that property. But as of right now, I have great concerns because since times I start talking to you, someone out there and put millings on our right-of-way. After I kind of made it clear, don't mess with it right now. Someone just blatantly did that.
So I don't know where the millions came from. Obviously, I didn't do that. I do know
I
that
know.
when I was a
We
child back in the mid-'80s, I would ride my bicycle in that same place, and it was milled back then.
Well, not
with
that we
rocks.
know of on our right-of-way. So somebody's taken advantage of our right-of-way without permission. And so I've got a real concern about that. Again, I don't believe it was you. I think you're a straight-up guy, but
It is being used for agricultural
suspect.
purposes, which less than a mile from me, there is a special district, state of Florida, that utilizes a road exactly like my road for their purposes to get to their property. So,
to build a home on an AU property, you have to be connected to a county road or with a flag lot or with a road.
okay.
So,
So-
but I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to table this so that your cost isn't totally thrown away, that they can work with you and help you work it out. But I'm going to be adamant that you have to go get some kind of engineering here so we even know what we're dealing with.
I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
I've been trying to get that for 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Actively pursuing it. I do feel like I have a pretty good argument to most of the things that you're stating. However, I will step back and maybe take 1 more month to attempt to get an engineer. And maybe next month. see
It's
where
either
we
that
go.
or it's going to be disapproved by me today.
Okay.
So I would like to do that for you because I think you're a good guy.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Ma'am, did you still want to say anything? You had a card. Okay. Commissioners, can I make a motion to table this and allow staff to have administrative authority to work with the applicant to see if he can get a roadway that's acceptable?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think just to keep with the procedure, I'll go ahead and make that motion, but you're welcome to second it.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I have a second, Commissioners? Second by Commissioner Tobia. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 5-0. I hope we work something out, sir. Yes, sir. Moving into item J2.
Commissioners, J2 is a contract for sale and purchase with Donna R. Dean. Her lot is located on the west side of Milford Point, just north of State Road 520. She is also in Zone M of the Septic to Sewer Conversion Project in District 2. The fiscal impact of this purchase is $415,000. It is $50,000 above the appraised cost. The requested action today is that the Board of Commissioners approve and authorize the chair to execute the attached contract for sale and purchase.
So move.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir. It's your district.
I've got some comments with respect to this, and we've been through this at other items that have taken place in D2, even with respect to Sorrel and the Lagoon. If you all remember, there was a parcel, I'm probably butchering the fellow's name that owned it, but Nandavina, to the north of the Walmart on State Road 520 by the Causeway. And they had done something similar where they had wanted more than our appraisal. In this case, we have a very recent appraisal dated August 23rd of this year for $365,000, yet they're insisting on $415,000, as best I can tell, simply because they think that we need their property in order to make this happen, and this is a bend over the barrel price. I have never paid more than either our appraisal or the average of our appraisal and the property owner, the current property owner's appraisal. To pay an amount that is objectively over an appraisal, where there's no flaw that's being argued with respect to the appraisal, no issue with the methodology or what was reviewed, it sets a horrible precedent. Well, I would love to see this area put on sewer, and I've been pushing for that for some time now. This isn't the way to do it because, frankly, it may only cost us $50,000 more on this particular project, but the precedent that this sets, which, frankly, over the past 3 years, I've actively fought against and successfully fought against setting, at least in District 2, is not one that I'm willing to assume. Even if it's $50,000 here, it may be several million down the road when folks realize that, oh, gee, if they really need the property, they'll pay way more than the actual value of the property. This is one of those situations where we're looking to do a good deed for the folks that live there. For us to be punished for doing a good deed is not the way to do it. There are other options for us that will allow us to complete this project. Granted, they are more expensive. I think in the long run and in the county's long-term interest, I'm not comfortable with an amount anything over the full cost of the appraisal. So what I would prefer to see is staff be given the authority to offer and to close it at the appraisal cost, at the full appraisal cost, and go from there. If they don't want to sell it, then that's fine, but I don't think we should get into the practice of paying more than the land is actually worth.
Thank you, Commissioner Lober. I got a little heartburn on this myself. Let me ask a question of Commissioners. I don't know if this is viable or not. Commissioner Tobia, you might have more wisdom on this than I do. Just a thought, if you have all these houses that are actively having leaky septic tanks into the lagoon, is there a way that we can show that they are polluting the lagoon and perhaps fine them for not taking care of what they should do? And maybe that's something we could look at, is just fining them and then making them realize that this is something we're doing for them. So
That is regulated by the state. We would have to contact the state and see if they could do anything. If the septic tanks meet the regulations, however, there probably will not be a fining mechanism in place. That might be an amendment to the statutes that the legislative delegation could pursue.
okay, because it's tough, because we've already invested so much money in this already. I hate it. Commissioner Zonka?
Yeah, 2 points. I mean, I wouldn't even ask you to analyze the cost savings to the IRL fund, you know, assuming that we have a little less cleanup over time and definitely are stopping pollution. But it's pretty typical. I don't know that I've ever seen us not, I mean, paying appraisal price for a property that we're asking for is just not standard practice. Whether you like it or not, you're always going to pay more than appraisal because we want the land. So that's pretty typical, because this isn't a property that's on the market. Somebody looking to sell, this is something we want to buy. So I'm sure that's, and I know the staff can verify this because I've been around a while, this is typical. I mean, for us to pay more, we're not paying double, we're just paying a percentage over. And again, the savings ultimately to our lagoon and to the lagoon fund, I mean, you can't even you almost can't even quantify it, because we don't even understand what in the future that would save us as well. So those are my comments.
Madam Chair?
Let me let Commissioner Tobia talk first, and then you, Commissioner Lober.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a couple questions for staff. Do we have and I may know the answers to these, so I apologize. I did read the report that you guys so diligently did, so, but for the benefit of folks that did not read it, do we have an alternative site picked out? Should we not use this one?
Commissioner, we looked, first of all,
I just need, do we have an idea of another place that we could potentially
No.
use?
without, logistically, technically, without this parcel, we
My
don't-
understanding was we would have to bore underneath the road
There's
that
some-
is clearly listed in the report that apparently just I read.
Right. Under 520, there is a parcel on the
Okay, so that
south
would be a
side.
yes. Okay, so I just want to move this along here. How much extra, according to the report here, would that cost?
150 to 250.
Okay, that's what the report said. So again, if we were to go with that alternative site, there would be a net increase
Correct.
of between 150 and 200,000. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this project could potentially, even though we were saving, or even though we were spending a little bit more than appraised value, could show quite a bit of savings for this. And the reality is, I don't think this does set a precedent. You could look at the viewership of these meetings. I don't think a bunch of folks are sitting out there watching this knowing that they can, have us over the barrel, and we don't have to make that decision as we move forward. We have the ability to stop that precedent. But in this singular case, we can save somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. So I think it's a wise decision to move forward with this.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Lober, let me let Commissioner Smith speak first, and then you
Sure.
can jump in. Sir.
I agree with Commissioner Tobia. This is with response to this is a case-by-case basis. So I don't think, and I agree with Commissioner Tobia, I don't think anybody's out there rolling their hands together and say, oh boy, now we can take advantage of the county commission or the Brevard County. It's a case-by-case basis, and if it makes sense, we'll do it. If it doesn't make sense, we won't do it. In this particular case, I believe it makes sense because the location is ideal for what we need it for, and if we use another location, it's going to cost us up to $250,000 more. So it's a cost basis decision, 50,000 versus 150 to 250.
Have we offered the appraisal amount to her yet? And they said no?
That is correct.
Commissioner Lober?
A few things. I think what's getting lost here, based on the conversation that I'm hearing, I'm not arguing that to do this would represent a cost savings over the next least expensive alternative for this particular project. It's clear. I'm not arguing otherwise. What I'm saying, though, is that long-term, the precedential impact is the problem. As far as this being routine, I can tell you in the 3 years that I've been here in D2, I have never, certainly not knowingly, I don't believe I've ever approved spending more than property is appraised for, or as I mentioned, the average of the owner's appraisal and ours in D2, even for property that we needed, even for the spoils site that we addressed north of Walmart, which was a much bigger property. And I didn't hear my fellow commissioners suggesting, well, you know, gee, the cost savings on this, we saved money by going about it the way that I suggested, which, if I remember correctly, was a high six-digit number in that. Maybe I'm off because it's been some time. But the bottom line is, these folks, you know, they aren't looking to sell their house necessarily. And if someone knocks on my door and they ask me, well, what would it take? If I give them an inflated number, it doesn't mean that I won't take some other inflated number that isn't quite as high as what I initially threw out there as a ask for the moon price. So, you know, again, it's not routine in D2. It's not been routine in D2 in the past 3 years. It may have been prior. I don't know. I can tell you that, you know, there are frequent flyers who do watch these meetings who are impacted by the fact that we will pay more or less than appraisal. And to think that folks aren't watching these meetings who will be impacted by that. For instance, the lot that we did the spoils site on by the Walmart, that was a commercial broker that represented that owner. To think that they don't watch the replays or look at the minutes of this, I just think that's a little bit short-sighted.
Okay, sir. Commissioner Zonka?
I really don't want to go in circles, but again, ultimately the bottom line is it's going to save the county between $150,000 and $250,000. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, and it gets people off of septic. So I mean, I don't see. Never mind that it's going to save us money in the long run as well. It just makes perfect financial sense. And also too, as far as setting precedent, I mean, I don't. It would have to be pretty specific precedent about a utility project specific to what we're doing here, which I don't know of any others that we've, I mean, at least in the last 4 or 5 years. So every situation's unique, and every situation comes back to the board. So I'm going to be supporting it.
And Madam Chair, it's fine. It sounds like it's going through, but I don't think this has anything to do with being specific to utility project or Sorrel. As far as one that's taken place over the past 4 to 5 years, I just mentioned one that was north of the Walmart on 520, not terribly far from the area that we're talking about, where doing what I suggested net a huge savings to the county. Now, that said, whether we're acquiring the land for utilities, for public works, for some other department, for natural resources perhaps, the fact that we're willing to pay more than appraised value is a fact that applies to any purchases that we may make in the future. It's not limited to utilities or Sorrel projects. So it sounds like the votes are there. It is what it is. I'll stop talking about it, but I think it's a mistake.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tobia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Passes 3-2. We're going to move into item J3.
Forgot my sunglasses.
Sorry, Commissioner.
You guys are
There's a
very pink.
Staff shuffle. Good morning, Commissioners. Item J3 is another item to support the opioid settlement. This one positions Brevard as what is called a qualified county. It has a number of actions that are being requested from the board to accomplish that. To be a qualified county, Brevard has to have an opioid task force, which we do and we're a member of. We have to have an abatement plan that's been adopted by the board, which is attached to this agenda item and is one of the requested actions for adoption. We have to be either providing or contracting for substance abuse services, which the county does. And the final one is that we have to enter into interlocal agreements with enough municipalities that covers 50% of the municipality's population. So based on 2020 census, that'd be about 191,000 people. Conversations we've started having with the cities regarding that interlocal. One of the things that you'll see in here is that we're asking for an implementation option from the board. There are 4 options. One is that you use together in partnership, as the body to prioritize the abatement plan and then do recommendations through an RFP back to the board for final approval. The second option is to create a standing committee, which includes municipalities under Together in Partnership, to prioritize. That would also allow for the cities, because of the way TIP works, to become members of TIP and also have further input into the process. We envision that there's probably going to be a smaller committee in TIP that will do recommendations for the board to approve for funding. That's because there's 50 some odd agencies that are members of TIP, and we don't want to have 50 different people reviewing an RFP. It gets a little too unwieldy. So we'll look at restricting that down. And then the third is to create a new advisory board, which includes the municipalities, which would require, again, infrastructure. Together in Partnership allows us to already use existing infrastructure and existing board that's been approved by this commission before. And then the fourth option is another process as defined by the county commission.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I've spoken with Palm Bay Mayor Rob Medina, and I think that there were a couple of options that were livable for him, one of which is certainly livable for me. I'm interested in the second option, presuming that we're very clear on the record that Palm Bay will have a seat on the committee that makes recommendations to come back to us.
Commissioners, we would actually be bringing Together in Partnership's resolution back to you at the end of November, because they're due to sunset in December, so we bring that back to you for renewal. So we will have that resolution with changes. And one would be, if you go with option 2, that standing committee, but then we also contemplate potentially some changes to the membership to make some of the municipalities, some of the larger ones, actual members, and then look at that recommending committee also.
Okay.
That's my motion to go with option 2, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have a motion for option 2.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zonka. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, we're moving into item J4.
Good morning, ma'am. Item J4 is requesting staff direction for the Charter Review Commission 3-attorney panel to review any amendments that are received by the Charter Review Commission. We've outlined a couple of options for the board to consider as far as the board serving as the selection committee or staff serving as the selection committee, and then authorizing the county manager to execute contracts and budget change requests.
Thank you, sir. So I think the question is, we need a motion of whether the Board of County Commissioners wants to do this or if we want the staff to do it. Commissioners?
Madam Chair, I would defer to staff and see if they have a strong preference one way or the other.
Mr.
I
Darling?
don't have an objection to that.
Okay. Mr. Darling? County Manager?
Staff would be happy to serve as a selection committee, and you don't have to bring it back to the board if the board's good with that.
Okay. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Motion to have staff, second by Commissioner Tobia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. And you guys got Commissioner Smith made the motion, right? Okay. Item J5. Commissioner Tobia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to personally thank you for leading the conservative initiative to place spending limits on county commissioner offices. To say the least, it's rare for a politician to show a willingness to investigate and limit their own offices. It is for this reason that I am confident that you will support this one as well. Currently, board policy allows employees on the board, including commissioners, to seek reimbursement for mileage expenses within the county. I think this makes perfect sense for staff members who are just doing their job and going where their duties entail, which have significant roles in shaping and can change depending on our request, often requiring them to go. Frankly, while it may be legal to have commission board members getting reimbursed for attending board meetings that are entitled commission chambers you see out there, because it is not technically their office, it's kind of incredibly fishy to taxpayers. Attending meetings such as this are entirely expected, and we all knew going into this that we would have such meetings. Those few times when commissioners are traveling within the county for things that are not truly typical with their job, it would not be worth the time spent calculating that reimbursement. However, for out-of-county trips, my amendment would have zero impact, and commissioners would follow the same procedures that they do now, again, working within your budget. As such, the amendment to BCC 92 I am proposing is a simple one, that it prohibits the five of us and our successors from seeking reimbursement for mileage expenses within the county. The policy is attached, Madam Chair, and I'd like to make a motion if there are, but after listening to any thoughts or suggestions.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, hold on just a second. I'm going to jump in real quick, and then I'm going to let Commissioner Zonka and then you. Commissioner Tobia, I would probably vote with you if you make it within districts. Let me give you a couple reasons why. If I have to travel from District 1 all the way down to District 4 and 5 to do like the supervisor of election, there's some things that we have to do that become quite expensive. Here's the thing, this isn't income, this is just reimbursement of out-of-pocket expenses. And I know that you and Commissioner Zonka never do this. So I know it's something that you made a decision to do, but when I got on, I knew this was it. And as an accountant, I don't have problems getting reimbursed for things that I'm doing out of pocket. Another thing for us to realize, and whether we know this or not, that the cost of living through the years, the CPI index is equal to 8.88 since we've been on here. So actually, we're already making $5,327 less than when we started as far as buying power. So this is not an inexpensive job that we do. There's some cost with it. But again, if you would redo that to do within district, I'd be fine with that. But I think when we have to do this excessive traveling because of what we have to do with our responsibilities on this, I think it's absolutely fair. Commissioner Zonka, you're next, ma'am.
I was wondering, do you have a total, or do you have any data points on what it's cost?
Right here, dear.
As Commissioner Pritchett said, I know I personally have never claimed mileage, but...
Not a penny. Madam Chair?
Sir.
In fiscal year 19, it was $5,621. In fiscal year 2020, it was $4,380. To date, this year it's $2,787. And Madam Chair, I appreciate the suggestion. However, I would not consider it a friendly amendment. It doesn't solve the issue of us driving into work. This is outside of my district. I just think it's very difficult. The reason I decided not to accept those dollars, and to be clear, I've not only not taken dollars within the county, I've not taken dollars when I've gone outside the county. I just think it's fishy. It's hard to explain. Yes, I'm getting paid mileage to drive into, like I said, when we walk through these doors, it says commission chamber. It just, doesn't sound right. And I do appreciate the premise, because this came up because of your conservative nature of putting limits on things. So I greatly appreciate that. However, I understand how you wouldn't support it as written. Unfortunately, I can't add that as an amendment. I think it, quite frankly, guts it.
I respect you on that, sir. I just don't agree with you on it, just because the length of our county. Commissioner Zonka, are you done, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Lober, you're next, sir.
Okay, I've got some thoughts, and bear with me because I think they're going to be a little bit lengthy. But, first off, I appreciate efforts that would save taxpayers money, Commissioner Tobia. As you recall, I'm sure, I supported your recent efforts to encourage productive behavior amongst our staff members, but I think today's item, despite what I'm confident are good intentions, may accomplish quite the opposite. So to be blunt, I think the agenda item is written may actually cost taxpayers more money, and it may well encourage laziness and or a lack of preparation on the part of individual commissioners. And I want to explain that. Before I do that real briefly though, but for sunshine, I absolutely would have had this conversation with you outside of today's meeting, so as to avoid having to get into something that's unpleasant of this nature during a public meeting. I've been content for the past, 3 years now, I suppose, without delving into it, but I think this agenda item really does force my hand. When I took office back in the end of 2018, pardon me, I was advised that 2 of my 4 colleagues at the time routinely took staff briefings and the other 2 simply didn't. Fact is that no one knows what they don't know. I know that applies for me as well. I routinely take staff briefings, as I always have. It's part of what I do to ensure that I'm prepared for these meetings. However, as I've always done, I go to staff in Viera instead of having staff, namely among our most highly compensated employees, nearly all of whom earn a 6-digit income, come to my office for briefings. At the time that I started and at the end of 18, at least one of the other 2 commissioners who routinely took briefings had staff at the time travel to their office for the purpose. So as I mentioned, having a dozen or perhaps more highly compensated, the most highly compensated county employees drive to a particular office so as to avoid me driving or an individual commissioner driving doesn't make sense. You're potentially paying over 10 times the mileage, but the commissioner wouldn't be, billing the mileage. So I guess you could say that's a win in that sense. Now, thankfully, it's my understanding at present that the other 2 commissioners who have routinely taken staff briefings now both follow the same thing I've been doing and have them at the Government Center in Viera, where all 3 of us do at this point, obviously not at the same time, given that it's most convenient for our staff members, and it really does ensure efficiency in keeping staff in their offices and off the roads during the workday. However, even if none of those employees were allowed to seek mileage, and I think Eden isn't based on her contract, but many of the others are, the opportunity cost of keeping a dozen or perhaps more employees, each of whom earn over 6 digits a year, on the road for perhaps an hour or more round trip, quickly renders the 57 cents or whatever it is per mile entirely meaningless, whether it's going to a commissioner or having a commissioner and his staff go to staff. So the fact is, many of those employees would be on the road if the commissioner didn't drive to them. As you said in introducing this item, I believe, you have no concerns over staff members seeking reimbursement for mileage. I agree with that, too. I think if there's a way to avoid a multiple of the mileage reimbursement being sought, though, I think it's a good idea. Moreover, I don't wish to discourage commissioners from representing the county at any of the various municipalities or even some of the civic organizations in our give or take a mile, 73-mile-long county. I can tell you I've been to a slew of city council meetings, not for giggles, but to represent my constituents' interest everywhere from Melbourne, even when we were dealing with the CUP for the height variance for our dump, to Cocoa to talk with them about grant issues in the IRL, to Cape Canaveral on various issues, to Palm Bay and Valkyria, even for Melbourne-Tillman. There are locations in the county that are objectively further, especially for Commissioner Pritchett, than a number of locations out of the county. I wouldn't want her, for instance, or myself, or Commissioner Smith, punished for ensuring quorum at a Melbourne-Tillman meeting. I've been to every single one since I've been elected, as I recall. Even still, the fact is, I spend well under my budget, thousands under my budget. I always have. I have consistently had the fewest full-time employees of any commission office, and I paid the least of any commission office in comp and benefits. I've never, that I can recall at least, paid a penny of taxpayer dollars for rent, and I would certainly recall if I did, I didn't. And I have had and continue to have the most unadorned, austere office of any of us. It's got asbestos in the walls, no joke, and the carpet, to my understanding, as I pointed out in a prior meeting or two, has been there since it was lawful to smoke in the building. So I can tell you I have never once billed for any hotel, any airfare, or any meal, despite having incurred a number of qualifying expenses under at least a couple of those categories. I don't bill to go to my office, even though it's somewhat far from my house, unless I'm returning from another county obligation. The one reimbursement I've ever sought, however, is mileage. The 57 cents a mile may or may not even cover the cost of maintenance or gas in my car, but it offsets those costs to a degree. I have no major qualms with mileage reimbursement being included in the commission office's overall budget. I think that makes sense. But as it's written, this agenda item would discourage the practice of keeping county manager staff, county attorney staff, and other departmental staff in their offices during the workday, which I think we would all want. It would discourage commissioners from making site visits to see problems their own constituents are experiencing firsthand. I did that recently with Mr. Denninghoff for some flooding concerns and culvert concerns on the west side of my district. What's more, it may also encourage laziness on the part of future commissioners. So I've got a different suggestion, though. If you're interested in keeping commission costs down, here's what you can do. And here's what I can do. I'm happy to put my money where my mouth is, or more accurately, back into the pockets of taxpayers. If you want to make a motion today, I would support one requesting on behalf of the board that the Charter Review Committee consider amending our county charter to set commissioner pay at the median household income in Brevard. Well, some of us treat this as a full-time job, others absolutely do not. So as such, I don't think what I'm saying is unreasonable or ridiculous. We can all, and I'm not being facetious, we can all take a multi-$1,000 a year pay cut without risking both the foreseeable and unforeseeable consequences of this agenda item. Now this, keep in mind, would potentially hit me the hardest, as I'm the only one on here who's not currently term limited, but it's still the right thing to do. Or at least let the voters decide. And if on the other hand, if you don't like the idea that I presented and you want to go through with the agenda item as you've listed it or substantially as you've listed it, the one thing I think you absolutely have to have so that you don't end up with some promissory estoppel claim, and you can look at Eden or look at Abby over there and see if they're rolling their eyes or nodding, you really need to specify an effective date at some point that doesn't go back into the past. So if you want to say for travel after the end of this meeting or travel starting on the 27th of October, I think that makes a lot more sense, because there are folks that may have a couple months of mileage that they've not submitted that they had every reason to believe would be reimbursed. But those are my thoughts. I'm not going to get any more circular. I have concerns over not the intention, but the fallout and the ramifications of this.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you for being brief, Commissioner.
As always.
I appreciate what you say. I'm just a little tongue-in-cheek there. I have a couple of notes here. The amount of money that we're talking about here isn't going to make anyone rich or poor, any of these commissioners, any future commissioners. Paying people for their mileage and expenses is realistic and customary as a business expense. So my thoughts are to ask an employee or an elected official to travel for free either in or out of the county is just unreasonable. As you all know, I have owned several businesses, and I always paid my own employees to travel. I paid myself even though it was my own company. It's just what you do. If you have an employee, including yourself, you cover their expenses. You don't ask them to work for free. You don't ask them to travel for free. I think it would be a terrible precedent. If you or any future commissioner, excuse me, chooses to voluntarily forego any part of your entitled salary or reimbursement, that is, of course, your choice. And that's the way I would leave it. If Commissioner Lober wants to lower his salary to whatever number he wants, that's his choice. You can do the same thing with the mileage. If you don't think it's what you want to do, then don't do it. But I don't think to commit this commission or any future commissioners to work or travel for free, I just don't think it makes any sense. But that's just me.
I'm in agreement with you. Commissioner Tobia, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And
Uh-oh, you took notes.
yes, I did. I agree with part of that, Commissioner Smith, that if Commissioner Lober wants to go in that direction, he's certainly more than willing to do that. We actually had a commissioner, I know he's cringing right now, but we actually had a commissioner, he'll go nameless, Barfield, who donated his...
Mr. Barfield.
Mr. Barfield, another gator there, who donated his full salary. And that always went below the radar. So we've had folks, not part of his salary, but 100% of his salary to charity. Never sought any type of recognition for that. So it's just important that we bring that up. And I bring that up. I really appreciate folks that definitely go above and beyond. Just don't talk about things, actually do them. In fact, don't talk about them and do them. And listening to what Commissioner Lober said, I was following, I think, his argument on staff briefings. However, there was a gentleman by the name of Alexander Graham Bell that invented a telephone a few years ago. And we have something called Zoom calls. So if you want to see a smirking John Denninghoff's face when you come up with a crazy idea, I don't. I generally go with the telephone. You are more than willing to do that. So you don't have to ask. You've never had to ask staff to come to your office. Of course, I'm sure they're more than willing at any of our offices, but they have a phone, many times a cell phone paid for by taxpayers, that you can contact them. It doesn't require them to come to us or us to go to them. I can't think of very many occasions where I ever had trouble at the last minute getting a hold of staff. They've been very attentive. So just because I don't ask staff to come to my office and I don't routinely call meetings with the entire staff, because many times I don't need the entire staff. I may have a question just for Mr. Denninghoff, and it may be a waste of time to have an entire briefing with, as Commissioner Lober mentioned, a bunch of folks that make $100,000 when I really only need to speak with one of those folks. And let's be honest, Mr. Denninghoff pretty much knows more than most of any of those other folks cumulatively.
Just ask him.
Yes, just ask him. So I think there are other ways to get a hold of staff. I hope, and I don't believe Commissioner Lober was insinuating that Dr. Zonka or I are lazy. I mean, if you look at what is put on this agenda, it's very apparent where much of it comes from, and we'll leave it at that. I just think that this is, while legal, as you mentioned, I think it's fishy that we're getting reimbursed to drive into the county commission meeting. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to accept the policy as.
Do we get paid to come to the county commission meetings?
And I'll second.
You don't, you live here.
Because my office is here.
Okay.
Okay. I was going to say, boy, I hope I'm not getting paid to come to this meeting.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, but on that point, Commissioner Tobia, that you just did, that we all kind of run it different with how we need to learn and how we need to absorb information. There's no doubt in my mind that all five of us do our very best to bring the very best we can here for our community. I don't feel that with any of y'all. I think y'all are doing a great job to do it. But I want to reiterate that this job is not cheap to do. And is, if you were doing without our charter cap, our salaries would be $96,000. We're almost at half of that with the charter cap, which is fine. That's what we did when we got into, and that's perfectly fine that we make. I think, what do you make, $59 a year?
Somewhere around
Yeah, so, if you do that again with the CPI change, everybody else got the increases. We never do. Matter of fact, you can go all the way back to 2011. It's quite a substantial difference. So with that, that's fine. We know we're doing it. It's all good. That's fine with me. But as far as reimbursed expenses, I just don't think it's right. I don't think anybody's abusing it. We're not turning anything. I bought all my own office for my own furniture for my office. I do those things for what we do, but this is reimbursed expenses for out-of-pocket for doing things. District 1, we're the farthest miles away even to get here. We used to be the county, well, we're still the county seat, but it used to be up there. No problem at all. In the middle's probably better, but I don't think that's unreasonable. If you've got to drive excessive miles. When I had to do supervisor of election to East John, it took me an hour plus in travel. I think an hour and a half in travel, getting there and back. The time's even harder than the rest of it. Some things we have to do in our positions. And then the cost of your car and mileage as well. I don't think it's unreasonable. So, Commissioner Lober, do you have anything else? I have a motion and a second. Yes, sir.
Yeah, very briefly, just a couple things. And I have a suggestion, and to be blunt, I'm not going to support the motion either way, but I think, again,
can you
from
go
a legal
ahead, if you
standpoint-
want to make a motion right after this, sir, and let's go ahead and just do this one first?
Well, before you do it, I think there's one critical deficiency. There's no effective date that's specified, and you could open the county up to potentially promissory estoppel claims for miles that have already been driven. So I would suggest, respectfully,
Commissioner
whether it passes
Tobia?
or not, that you specify an effective date either as of today, as of tomorrow, whatever you want with respect to that. But I don't think that it's sufficiently clear with how the motion's been phrased, whether that applies to travel that's already taken place.
Okay, Commissioner Tobia, do you want to put an effective date on that, sir?
No, quite,
No?
and let me tell you why. Because this
Okay.
only pertains to us.
Right.
So when Commissioner Lober is saying it opens us up to claims, he means he may, unless it's one of you three, sue the county.
Now, do you want to do
And
this moving
my
forward from
understanding
here?
is the only official that sued the county previously is an Altman.
Do you want to do this moving forward right now? Do you want to start it today? You want to start at the end of the month?
Madam Chair, it's very clear that this isn't going to pass. So
Okay.
I was just extremely concerned when you got into our budgets. It opened it up, and I thought it was a little.
You
I
brought
thought it was
this
a
up
little.
before, so I don't blame you. You brought this up before. I know you have.
No, absolutely not.
Our very first year.
I have never brought up this as a policy. Absolutely
I
not.
thought you did our very first year at a budget meeting.
I have not brought,
Knowledge?
Commission, to the best of my knowledge, brought it up. But
Not as
but
a
for
meeting.
respect,
okay.
I certainly, I don't want to put you guys in a tough position. And so, Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and pull it.
Madam Chair, may I just briefly as well?
Hold on just a second, sir. Commissioner Zonka, he's pulling it. Are you good with that, or are you?
That's fine. If we
Okay.
can stay on topic, that'd be great.
Okay, so this item right now is dead. But Commissioner Tobia, you know I respect you on this, sir. I hope you understand. You do. You already told me you did, where I come from. Yes, sir.
Well, and I would like to reiterate that, because I've said it before. I really appreciate this board and the perspective that they bring. Everybody has good ideas and interesting perspective, and I really appreciate
Yeah.
what all of you have to say.
I do too. I think we crunch it this way. Commissioner Lober?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and this is really for the benefit of two folks on the commission, more so perhaps than the others. But yes, Alexander Graham Bell did put in place an interesting communication system that we all, I would assume, make use of at this point. I'm making use of it right now. Granted, I'm on a VoIP line, not a traditional landline. But the fact is, there are a number of reasons why meeting in person, apart from when you have a cold or a virus or what have you, is better. Oftentimes with planning and development for zoning meetings, the printouts, good luck viewing those on a screen. Good luck having someone try to explain them to you on the phone. I agree. You don't want to have staff that you don't need sitting there indefinitely. If they don't have an item on the agenda, they simply don't come to the briefing. In the alternative, if you have, let's say, Mary Ellen Donner, the last time she was at a briefing of mine, she had one item on the agenda. We took her first, and she was in and out in probably 5 or 6 minutes. So it's not inefficient. I think that it has tremendous value. The other thing is, when you're physically there with someone, they have more of a sense, generally speaking, or more of an inclination, generally speaking, to bring you up to date, not just on what's on the agenda, but also potentially items that are coming up in the very near future. So I find that just being in the government center and being in an environment where employees and staff can approach me with issues that they think may be coming up or that I ought to know about has a value in and of itself. And I'm not saying that everyone has to do briefings every time. It's up to you what you want to do. I'm just saying that I see tremendous value in it. It's helped me in being better prepared for meetings. And I've never felt at any meeting that I've gotten blown out of the water because there was something I simply didn't know.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move into item J6. Commissioner Tobia, this is you again, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will point out that this was done in accordance with staff, and it was all done remotely. In fact, I had this on the agenda, and they brought up some issues that needed to be dealt with. So with that being prefaced, this is an idea of a proposal that came about in a conversation that I had with an employee in my office. This employee had recently purchased a firearm and was going to be taking her concealed weapons course. When I asked her why, she said one of her primary reasons was so she could carry during work hours, consistent with the policy that thankfully this board passed several years ago. I agreed with her wholeheartedly that this was a rational decision, and we've been the subject of violent threats in the past. And State Representative Randy Fine, who is our next-door neighbor, has publicly stated that he has been the target of, quote, Muslim terrorists. Since this was an hourly employee who's taking on a fairly significant expense due to a work-related issue, I had staff inquire as to whether it was eligible for reimbursement through the county. Mr. Darling diligently informed me that it was not an eligible expense because under current policy, licensing fees may only be reimbursed if they are required by state law as part of their duties. While I initially considered proposing an amendment to this policy, several questions were raised by our great staff, particularly regarding insurance coverage. As such, I am requesting that staff simply research the impact of a proposed amendment and report back to the board in 60 days to its findings. If it comes back, my question is this: if it comes back and it is not going to be an additional expense of any great magnitude, I would put forth that as a policy change. However, if you are against this, there's no use in staff going through additional time and effort, whether it be legal or insurance. And you have the ability to cut it off at the pass. So if you're against this, regardless of cost, you'd be saving staff a lot of time doing research on this. So the request is very simple. It's just the motion would be direct staff to research potential implications of adopting the proposed amendment to policy BCC 08, including but not limited general liability, workers' compensation, drug testing, training, and compliance, and public record issues. So that's the motion.
Second, Lober.
Madam Chair, this, of course, would come back once all those stuff were dealt with one way or another.
Okay, well, I appreciate you asking us before you incur the cost. I think that's very commendable, sir. I think Commissioner Lober just gave you a second.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard him do that. Whatever you guys want to do, I'm probably not going to support this when it comes up. I don't know where you guys fall on it. I just don't know if we should start down this path. You know, if somebody needs a driver's license, or I don't know. I just think some things we need to pay for on our own. Not that I'm against people carrying, because we voted on it, but I just have some heartburn with this one. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I find this very interesting, and I thought about it a lot, and I liked it initially, but I came to the conclusion that if we require anyone in staff to carry, then we should pay for a permit. But if we don't require it, I think we're going down a slippery slope. And you just mentioned one, a driver's license. I mean, it's not a big expense, but everybody needs a driver's license to come to work. But it's not a prerequisite for us. It's a decision that the employee makes. So I think we need to keep it there.
Commissioner Zonka, I think it's going to fall on you, ma'am.
That's great. I'm happy to look at this item. I mean, I have staff look at it. I would just say where my limitations lie is if it's not warranted, like it may not be required, but in your instance, for example, like where there's a safety issue, if that's something that the employee is eligible for, that helps them essentially perform at their job better, correct? Because they feel safer at work. They feel safer being in the office by themselves at times. I know my girl in the office, she carries, I mean, she's concealed weapons carrier, and I'm glad she is because we have had some interesting calls in the past. I would say I would be comfortable if you came up with a list of positions, maybe you work with staff, come up with a list of positions that where you feel that people may benefit from personal protection because, you know, we have a lot of staff and a lot of different positions in the county, and an example of code enforcement would be another one. And there's some obvious ones where people carrying would benefit them at their job and make them safe, be able to perform their job safer. So, I mean, I think I would be okay if we went down that path.
Madam Chair?
Hold on just a second. Commissioner Tobia, your light's on, sir.
I'll close it after hearing
Okay. Commissioner Lober?
with your acceptance.
Oh, certainly, sir.
Yeah,
Commissioner Lober?
just one thing, Commissioner Tobia. And again, if you don't do this, you don't do it, but I would prefer, all else equal, when this comes back, that you exclude commissioners themselves from participating in this. I have no problem if our staff members do, but I don't know that we should be doing something that would give us a reimbursement, even if it's for a good reason. I'll tell you, I carry the vast majority of the time anyway, and this would simply pay me to do something that I'm already doing. So I would just ask that you consider excluding the commissioners themselves. That's
Well,
all.
here's the thought, too. If we're going to do that, should we reimburse all the ones that have already paid for it out of their pocket? My whole staff has it already. They went and did it We did it and they came on, they did it because we're kind of secluded. So if we're going to do this, are we just going to reimburse everybody that's already had to do out-of-the-pocket expenses? That would seem fair. And then another thought on that is I think we have over 2,000 employees. So I think we need to put all this together, Commissioner Tobia. I know your heart was right with this. I just have some heartburn. So if you would help work all that out before you came back, that would be great too.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I certainly won't I'll take all that into consideration. What I won't take into consideration is the irony that just took place, that it's okay to reimburse us for voluntary decisions like driving to a location, but it's not okay to reimburse staff for making those same voluntary decisions, us for education, them for probably their primal, safety. But thank you for the suggestions. I will
I
take
think,
them all into consideration
I get it, but I
as we
think
move forward.
the difference in that is that you got to be places, but you don't necessarily have to carry. I have a member of my family, I would never want them carrying a gun. I've seen the way they shoot. So, I think that has to go under consideration as well.
And Madam Chair?
Hold on just a second, sir. So, but if you would pull out that together, you knew you'd picked a very controversial subject when you brought this anyway. So I know you'll be able to work all that out here in all of us. Commissioner Lober, sir, and then Commissioner
And
Tobia
I may
again.
differ with you on this particular agenda item, Madam Chair, but I will tell you, I think the other difference that to me makes this distinguishable from the other item is that the other item was talking about taking away something that employees were entitled to under existing policy. This is adding an entitlement, which to me is night and day different from the other. So I'm with you. If you don't support it, I still respect you. If you support it, I respect you. You've got to do what you think is right. My inclination is to support it, but we'll see how it comes back.
Yes, sir. I do have one card on this. I'm so glad you waved at me, Mr. Slusher. Mr. Tobia, you would get if we bring him up before I open your mic up again?
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Mr. Slusher.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Nathan Slusher at 860 Allendale Street. I wanted to say, of all the government meetings I've sat through here at County and the various municipalities over the last year in Brevard, this is probably one of my favorite items to ever be brought up. The fact that we actually consider this is a fantastic thing. I do have some points I want to point out on the actual motion itself. Section 3, subsection Part A. I want clarification of why we only want to give it to people who have been here for 12 months. I could understand a 90-day waiver when somebody gets hired on, they're going through the process. But once they're an employee, shouldn't they be an employee? Is there a reason 12 months? I don't know if it was just put in or if there's a specific reason. That's what I'm asking for. Subsection G, I would ask for it to be removed. If we're going to do something great for our employees, just do something great. The fact that they would have to pay it back if they were to leave and get a better job and go somewhere else just seems inadequate. Just, if we're going to do something great for them, do it, and then be the end of it. And also back on Part A of Section 3, it very clearly states full-time employees only. And if there's one thing I've learned over 15 years of business management and ownership, is that your part-time employees are just as important as your full-time employees. So if we're going to give, this is a benefit that can help every American out there. So if we can give it to our full-time employees, we should be providing it for our part-time employees too. The cost, as Ms. Pritchett just said, we have upwards of 2,000 employees. And given the chart that was attached to the agenda item, at max, that's $300 per person. That was the highest amount on there, which comes out to $600,000. I've seen $600,000 spent on stuff that is far less important than this. And of course, we know it's not going to be $600,000. That would have to be recurring if we had 2,000 people every year, brand new. But we won't. We're going to have long-term employees, so the cost won't be that. It would be much, much less. I just want to point out that if we're going to include the full-time employees, I would very much like to see Brevard County include its part-time employees too, and really set a standard. I think that would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, we have 2,200 employees closer, 377, it's 829,000, just so we know. And then as you new hire, we'll add those on as well, just to consider the cost. You might want to frame that a little bit different, Commissioner Tobia, if you bring it forward with thinking through all that, sir. So,
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion of think it forward. In fact, I did. That would be a cost. Are you aware of how long permit lasts for?
No.
I am, because I did a little research. 7 years. So that would be, assuming 100% of our employees did it, that would be 800,000 divided by 7. Maybe if a few of us took a couple less trips to our office.
Isn't this a upfront cost, though? We don't pay it per year. Are you doing the
So it's ridiculous to assume, as you've mentioned previously, your entire office has it. I have one.
Yeah.
I'm not carrying right now, nor do I
we're not
ever
allowed to,
carry.
yeah.
I would support, that would have been in the policy had I brought one, that none of us were eligible for it. Yes, that would be a cost, assuming 100% did it and 100% needed it the first year. The odds of either one of those two happening are extremely small.
Okay.
And I've got no problem with, I wish he wouldn't have brought up that number because it sounds daunting at the beginning. It would be a small fraction
So
of
you-
that. I'm not opposed to any
you-
of those suggestions.
You wouldn't reimburse then, other ones have just gotten it?
That's something,
So
I wouldn't be
think
opposed, I
through.
wouldn't be
Okay.
opposed to doing it. We could do it over proportionally. That
Okay.
is something that we could discuss. That's why I've just wanted to
Just
see
throwing
this
out
bringing it
everything to
forward.
you as you're
But
working
to
it.
be clear, thank you for those suggestions. The issue was I amended a current policy when it comes to the reimbursement of licensing. This would not be a completely new one.
Okay.
If this board would feel comfortable creating a completely new policy with that, with many of those suggestions, none of which I would be opposed to, I certainly would do it. Just I had a draft policy based on the one that we currently do and the reason why we can't put it forward. But I appreciate everyone's time and consideration and allowing staff to go forward with this to see what its potential impact would be. As it could be detrimental with liability. If this comes back an additional millions of dollars of liability, then yes, it's probably not something that would be feasible. So thank you for everyone's time
Well, thank you for doing all the work on it and bringing it up and letting us kind of bounce it off you a bit with, you've always done that in the past, brought something off and let us bounce our concerns with you. So I certainly do appreciate that, sir. Commissioner Lober, yes, sir.
Just a suggestion for Commissioner Tobia, and I'm fine either way. I just wanted to put it out there if you had a strong feeling one way or the other. With respect to what Mr. Slusher said with the part-time employees, I don't have an issue if you leave it as is. I also don't have an issue if you want to make it so that it's proportionate to the fraction of full-time work that they're doing. So if they're a three-quarter time employee, to make it three-quarter of it, I'm fine either way. So, just think about it if you wish. If you don't. And if it's in there one way or the other, I'll support it.
Okay. And as you do this, Commissioner Tobia, I would be more apt to support it if you wrote in the criteria that Commissioner Zonka had brought up in it as well. So, sir, you have a motion and a second to go forward with some research. Is that what we're doing, sir?
That was the motion, Madam Chair, to direct staff to answer the questions that they had posed concerning a whole list of items.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're on item J7.
And as they're getting set up, Madam Chair, I'm going to be with you on this one. I don't have any concerns, so if you want to make a motion, I'll second it. Or I'll go ahead and make a motion, and you can second it if you prefer.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second by Commissioner Smith? And Tobia will go with Smith. He went first. Do you want to go ahead and tell us what it is, sir? It's very exciting.
Yes. Excuse me. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Troy Post with the Economic Development Zone. And of course, the District Board, the District Zone Board has recommended that the Commission consider advertising for a hearing which would change the name of the Commerce Park in Titusville to Exploration Park West. And what this would do would allow us to capitalize on the cachet, if you will, of Exploration Park, which is the development over at Kennedy Space Center, which is the home, of course, to Blue Origin and OneWeb satellites. So this is part of a marketing campaign, a rebranding of that area. The reason we're coming to the commission to do this is because we have restrictive covenants that are recorded on that park, and we want to go back and re-record those covenants to keep those governing regulations in place as to what kind of development can go forward there. So this is the first step in this process of changing the name.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item J8, I believe this is you, Commissioner Lober.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, it is. So I don't want to be too circular with what's in the agenda item. I do want to point out a couple things as far as the summary explanation and background. The vast majority of this, not to say is identical, some of which it is, but the vast majority, if not all of this, is based on what the City of Melbourne does in allowing their auditorium to be rented. There are some differences. I'll give you an example. The $2 million general liability insurance, I believe Melbourne may be $1 million, but the event host that uses their facility routinely provides $2 million. Risk management and potentially our insurer also recommended $2 million. So to avoid issues on that front, we just made it $2 million, since that seems to be something of an industry standard. Where it talks about submitting a security plan to include one ATF agent and one additional law enforcement officer on site while firearms are present. I think the way that Melbourne had it was 24/7, but the bottom line is I think what they were attempting to accomplish, but just didn't phrase it perfectly, was they didn't want the firearms between days when you have a multi-day show to be in the facility without law enforcement being present. So that's why I changed that a little bit from what they did. As far as the security plan, including one ATF and one additional LEO, it's not to be taken, and this is incorporated into the motion by reference at this point, that you are limited at one ATF agent plus one additional LEO. That's a dead minimum, irrespective of the location. So if you have a small event, you're still going to have one ATF agent and one LEO. If it's in a city, you could have a reserve officer, quite frankly, or a reserve deputy if it's unincorporated Brevard. Nothing says that's a max, though. So if you have an event that has, it'll never be, but if you have an event that has 10,000 people in it, two law enforcement officers probably isn't going to cut it. But this was put together working with staff, working with risk management to ensure that there was some level of comfort. I'd like to be able to have gun show groups put together gun shows at county-owned facilities without being discriminated against based on the nature of what it is that they're doing. This provides protections to the county so that should something happen, and it is incredibly infrequent that something happens at a gun show that results in injury. People are absolutely on the lookout like hawks at these things. I've been to a number of them in Brevard and elsewhere, and it's an astounding rarity for anything bad to happen. So I think this provides the adequate protections. I did not make it specific to the Parks and Rec Center in D4, frankly, because looking at it and considering it, it seemed to be something that would be artificially limited if we just said, okay, there's one location in D4. I thought we look at it perhaps as a county-wide policy, so if someone wants to do this in D4 or D1 or D2 or wherever, the same rules apply to them. So I would go ahead and make a motion to approve it, again, with the caveat that when it says the security plan to include one ATF agent and one additional LEO is not taken to mean that that's a maximum. That's simply the floor.
Thank you, sir. So I have a motion. Commissioner Smith, this is in your district, so after we hear from you, we will take a vote.
Yeah, I'm good.
Wait, is that a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Tobia, yes, sir. He snuck in there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a whole litany of questions for not only the sponsor of this, but staff potentially. Is that okay?
Sure.
First of all, Commissioner Lober, again, sunshine, I would have gotten with you, but is this intended to be an administrative order or a policy?
At this point, I believe that we're gearing it as a policy. Do you see there a need for it to be an administrative order? If so, we can re-gear it.
No, Madam Chair. My question is, if it's a policy and there's no policy attached, once it's drafted, would this have to come back to the board once we're voting on an idea here, not necessarily a policy? An administrative order would give staff the discretion to make the decision. So, it wasn't clear. But it's a very important distinction. I'm sure you know, or I'm sure you know.
If you're more comfortable with it coming back, I'm happy to have it come back. It's your preference.
I'm just trying to clear. I'm just trying to clear it up. Clear it up either way. Again,
I was comfortable with staff, but if you have concerns that it's not going to be written in accordance with what all of us are anticipating, then I'm happy to have it come back. But whatever your preference is, I'm fine to go with.
I know it's not with staff going with direction. It's the legality of a policy happening without approval of that policy. And whether that's an issue or not, I don't know. It's something that I would have to, discuss with staff. Secondly, and I appreciate you pointing out Melbourne's doing that, but I'd like to point out again that this Brevard County Commissioners decided not to raise taxes, and Melbourne did. So we are a little bit different than Melbourne. I had three, not issues, but things that, could potentially come up with this. The first one is competition. So have you given any thought, but doing some quick Google research, it appears that there are 2 such gun shows scheduled in the next month, one at a Moose Lodge in Merritt Island, another at the Melbourne Auditorium. There's presumably other venues, including the commercial market. By giving access to a county venue essentially at cost, we may be tipping the scales on private enterprise in competition with others. Sometimes, as a conservative, we don't like government getting involved in these type of things. How do you square that away?
Pretty easily. I don't view it as an issue simply because everyone has the same opportunity. I'll tell you at this point, I don't even know the name of the individual that sought to rent the facility in D4. I truly don't know that. If someone wants to pay to strap me to a polygraph, despite me having a cold or flu or whatever I've got, I'll happily go and they can grill me on that to their heart's content. But I don't think that, that with us simply making it available that we're picking a winner or picking a loser. It's whoever books it. If someone wants to book it next month and the same group wants to book it 2 months from now, God bless them. It's open to everyone. Just as the county commission chambers were willing to rent the chambers to the local Democrat Party or to the local Republican Party.
Sorry, Commissioner. This is my bad. I'm sorry I didn't explain myself and I appreciate the explanation. But my thought is this: if we do it at a subsidized rate, that let's say Holiday Inn, and we have a neighbor of Holiday Inn, can't do it that because they have to pay employees a different rate. They have other things that the county doesn't have to incur. Is it fair, not with the choosing of various gun sellers at our location? I'm concerned about our location versus private enterprise, that being another auditorium, a private auditorium.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from now. Yeah, that's a subjective question. Obviously, you could have a different answer than I could. What I'll tell you though is I have an issue and I have heartburn when we start regulating who can use our facilities or what they pay based on the content of what it is they intend to put on. So to me, that's the overarching concern. If someone wants to rent it for religious purposes or they want to rent it for political purposes, that's fine, as our policies are now. I just have an issue with us starting to, or continuing in this case, continuing to regulate based on content. I think that is the overarching concern that to me more than overrides any potential impact on local business.
Thank you. And just to be clear, I'm not concerned about any of these. I think that there should be a prohibition altogether, but we'll get there in a minute. The second one would be, Commissioner Lober, I'm sure you're aware that Parks and Rec has currently 80 unfilled vacancies right now. This would require overtime. I think we were involved with the negotiations with the fire union recently where fire folks came up over and over and over again and this mandatory overtime. And you were strongly against that. My question is are you okay with Parks and Rec having mandatory overtime? Because that's what would have to happen should this situation transpire.
Again, I think the question is you have competing goals here. The goal that I have is making our rental process more content neutral so that we're not precluding groups or accepting groups based on the nature of what it is they intend to present.
You're trying to interpret my intent. My question is simple. Do you have any problem with mandating overtime for
Yes.
county? Do you have any problem with that?
Yes.
Okay. You understand that this will cause that situation.
I don't understand that that's a certainty. I understand it's a possibility.
Okay. I may have to punt that over to staff. And finally, and here's the crux of the issue, and if you're looking for something, here's what I would be willing to go forward with. These venues have activities currently in them. We would have to be displacing the folks that are using these facilities. Now, the one apparently that you were looking at, it just so happens that on that certain day, there aren't any activities taking place. However, there are activities taking place both the preceding and the day immediately following. So in other words, there'll be little kids that were taking Taekwondo or that had a big basketball game come up that now will have to be displaced. And we have to look at the mission, right, of these facilities here. And the mission of these facilities, I think, is park activities. So I've got no problem with gun shows or Bible selling or whatever the heck you want to do. It sounds like you're asking about my motivation. What my motivation is, I don't want to have to displace kids who have games going on. So I would support this with the one disclaimer, and it's very simple, that there is no displacement of community activities, because I think that's the reason that these things were built. I'm not positive, I wasn't around, I didn't vote for this, but I think the reason that these facilities were built was to give folks an outlet for recreational activities. And now you're choosing one activity over the purpose. So a simple clause added onto this, whether it's administrative order or whether it is a policy that simply says that no little kid will be kicked out from an activity that they have planned. I would, even despite all of that stuff, even despite the overtime, that is my most important most important caveat. Would you be amenable to not removing any kids from priorly scheduled activities at these facilities?
Yes, as long as we word it appropriately. I've heard a few different versions or variations in what you said. When you said for an activity that they've already planned, if they're already on the books, I'm fine with that. But I don't want to get into a situation where we have some anti-gun group call as soon as they find out that the venue is booked and say, oh, well, my little boy wants to play Taekwondo or practice Taekwondo there, and then they get booted because someone's trying to game the system by claiming they want a community activity, potentially not to even show up. So if they're already on the books, that's fine. But I do have an issue saying if someone calls after a group is already reserved, whatever that group is, I don't care if it's political or civic or otherwise, I don't think we boot anyone that has a standing reservation at a facility. So I'm with you with respect to that, and that, I'll have that implicit or explicitly stating prior to making the motion or with respect to the motion that's contemplated by it. I have no issue.
Madam Chair?
Sir.
There are, on the face, this sounds pretty simple. However, there are some issues that, I brought up that some other members of this board, and I'm sure staff would have, whether it be with overtime or activity. So I'd ask that that this comes back in the form of a policy, so we can look at this at a future date. I'm willing to look at this next meeting if you're on this, but I think it would be much clearer, given all these other circumstances, for us to actually see the language for not only my protection, but yours, Commissioner Lober, as well. I think you know where most of us stand, including myself on this one, given what I've said, that I would support that with this type of stuff. So I'm not punting you down the road. I'm saying I most likely will support this. I'd just rather see it in black and white. So my question is are you comfortable with outlining and giving us an actual policy to vote on?
I'm fine with that, provided we don't delay it to a point where now the organization that had spurred this into occurring in the first place is beyond some deadline for making their event. I'm happy to continue.
Commissioner Lober, let me ask you real quick. So if we didn't brought back policy next week, do they still have time to fulfill it?
I would have to defer to Ms. Donner if she's there.
Ms. Donner, if we brought this back next meeting as a policy and voted on it, is there still time for this organization to do this event?
Our communication with the potential organizer indicated that he would have to know yesterday or today.
Oh.
So how about this? Because I don't want to cause problems for them. That's really the only concern. I have no problem, having staff, or I can do it, where until we have a formal policy brought back before the BOCC that we use this particular summary explanation and background as though it's policy, and we bring back a policy that's intended to be more permanent, or we could say more formal at the very next meeting. That I'd be comfortable with. So we vote between now and the next board meeting to make use of this as the policy, with the understanding that a more formal policy will be drafted and brought back for final approval.
Okay, I have another light on, but let me throw out, I spent some time asking staff about this because they are coming with their own liability insurance. And
Yes.
there was no school in session at the time at all. They're out for a holiday weekend. So those kind of fix some things that I have with concerns. Now, there could be some other concerns, but those were my two biggest. And then I asked staff, do we see any other unforeseen consequences? And they said none that they were aware of. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Commissioner Zonka.
Yeah, and I would just say, I'm a little nervous, or I don't think it's the right thing to do, at the very least, rushing to put a policy in place for an organization that's banking on us passing this, because really, that's not really how we operate. And we give the public a chance to speak on it. I'm not even opposed to it. I'm really not, as long as, like Commissioner Tobia said, it doesn't interfere with our regular recreational activities. But if this agency, that no one seems to know the name of, if this agency was banking on having their gun show in this community center without us allowing that, that sounds a bit bizarre to me. Like, let's hurry up and bring it to the board. They'll approve it so you can go ahead and have your show. I would never, as an organization or as a business, assume that the county's going to say yes if they said no already. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm not comfortable with passing this just as a policy, temporary or otherwise, because, we talk about precedent. We're going to start allowing anything and everything in there. And again, I feel more comfortable seeing this in person, complete, legal, and all that, and seeing if there is any liability, and I have other questions as well. But again, I find it a little odd that an organization who probably was told by our county that they couldn't do this at this facility is now has to know yesterday if we're going to go ahead and allow them to do it after they already knew that we said no. So I'm not comfortable passing this, and I'm not going to support it today.
Okay, Ms. Bentley, let me ask you a question. If we approve this, we're allowing this one-time event here because it came before the board, and we outlined some criteria, so we could still come back with a policy.
You could come back with a formal policy. This is for gun shows generally. It's not just for one event. It's for gun shows anywhere.
Gun shows anywhere?
Yeah, in your parks and recreational facilities.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd be comfortable with that if we have the votes. I don't know whether we do or not, but I'll go ahead. If I had a motion that was withstanding or outstanding at the time, I'll go ahead and withdraw it and make a new motion just to approve the event that we've all discussed that's supposed to come up in roughly a month's time, of which Ms. Donner is familiar, at the Recreation Center in D4 that was previously identified, provided that the entity that's putting on the event comply with all of the requirements that are in the bullet list of the summary explanation background. And also I'll note that I will be bringing back at the next meeting a more formal policy to apply to all gun shows in general.
Okay, and Ms. Bentley, this is your last meeting, so let me ask Ms. Abby. Ms. Abby, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Well, so we're going to go ahead and talk about this particular event today, but bring back a formal policy for all events in the future.
Okay, so you just made a motion. Commissioner Smith, does your motion hold on that?
Sure.
Okay, because Mr. Commissioner Lober, I'm sorry, Commissioner Smith,
Yeah,
hold. Commissioner Tobia, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be voting for this for some reasons, not that I've brought up, but that this board has brought up in the past. I think the term one-off, we weren't interested in doing a one-off, and this exactly will be a one-off. This organization, be it private or public, had the opportunity to see us ahead of time, and to give us an arbitrary deadline, it doesn't seem to work out so well. Again, I'm probably in favor of this policy, but to pick and choose one organization, I'd have to ask myself, if an organization that I didn't support and you may not support, would we have gone through all of these hoops to allow an organization that didn't necessarily jive with us ideologically? Would we be doing the same sort of thing. So again, if you incorporate, the displacement of the community activities, and we get it in such a way that everyone's comfortable, we deal with that mandatory overtime that I know really gets stuck in your craw. I'm going to most likely end up supporting this policy, but to pick and choose, as this board has brought up, one activity over another one. In fact, I think you brought it up here. I think we'd be doing the very thing that you'd warned us against. So for that reason, I can't support this one organization moving forward at this point.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, hold on just a second, Commissioner Lober. Miss Mary Ellen, is there anything else that's pending in this place during that time period? Anybody else looking at wanting to use it?
There is a program that is scheduled on Saturday.
Okay.
And it is an ongoing program.
Ongoing program.
And as this proposed agenda item outlines, they would need the entire facility, which means we would have to displace the karate on Saturday morning.
Okay. Have they been questioned about that, if it'd be okay with them, or?
We have not approached, as we knew this agenda item was going to be heard here today.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Jesus, let somebody else talk. Yes, sir.
Yeah, with respect to that, I don't know how much space the karate takes up, but the goal was never to displace anyone, and I think that was a valid point raised by Commissioner Tobia. If they can make use of it with that, with that area still being allowed, or a comparable area in the same facility still being permitted for the folks doing the karate, I have no problem making that part of the motion or incorporating that in the motion. As far as picking and choosing, though, I do kind of receive that a little bit poorly, in the sense that I think that what we've been doing up to this point is picking and choosing, and this is eliminating the picking and choosing, because we're saying, regardless of what the content is, we're going to allow you to go and do this. So to say that it happens to jive with us, it may or may not. If you look at the fact we disallowed it rather arbitrarily, I don't know that it really did jive with the county's position up to this point. So yeah, if there was a group that I disagreed with, even if it were, let's say, an atheist group or something along those lines, I would do the exact same thing in permitting their event. I mean, the fact is, I think that we have to be content neutral in allowing the use of our facilities. If we can't do that, then we shouldn't allow anyone to use our facilities. So if a gun group wants to use it, we absolutely should allow them to do it. If an anti-gun group wants to use it, we cannot start picking and choosing who's entitled to use which facilities. As long as we address the liability concerns and the concerns that Commissioner Tobia made over displacement, I think it should be open to everyone. It's a community center, a recreation center. It's not this section of the community or this fraction of the community center. I think that's totally wrong.
Commissioner Tobia, you can speak, and then we'll call the motion.
Thank you. And this may be a moot point. One final question for staff. Is that okay?
Oh,
thank you.
The floor.
I assume Commissioner Lober wrote the cover, the summary explanation and background. So my question would be to Mary Ellen. Under bullet point 2, it says, rent the entire community center. There would be no concurrent center use, and the event organizer has the sole possession of the building. So in your opinion, would karate going on and guns going on at the same time be concurrent?
Yes, sir.
So if we were to vote for this, would that organization be allowed, and we were to follow it as written, would that organization have access to the facility?
The karate organization would not have access to the facility if it is as written here, because it was the recommendation of risk management that the building be.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not. It says rent the entire, there would be no concurrent center. Why would the default be the organization that wants to be there as opposed to the default being the one that is there? Why would we say no to the karate who scheduled it instead of the guns? Where in this summary of explanation does it give authority for the guns to supersede the karate? I never thought I would be saying that.
It all depends on which self-defense you're after.
Because this will be given to you to make, or, you to make that decision. And my reading of this is that there will be no concurrent, and the default is what's currently in place. What's currently in place is karate.
Correct.
So in other words, if we were to pass this right now, the gun show would not have the ability to work.
The gun show, the karate, if you passed it, the karate would not be able to have their class if the gun show was going on.
Okay, so I'm sorry, there's a miscommunication
I'm
here.
sorry.
I'm
Abigail,
sorry.
maybe.
Where in here does it say guns over karate?
If I may, Commissioner, if I can help.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
No, so I think what you're asking is, the motion originally was for countywide in general. Now we have gone to this particular event, and the dates that they've asked Ms. Donner for already have a concurrent event going on in that facility. So obviously, we would have to displace it if this policy was now adopted for that particular weekend, which I understand is Thanksgiving weekend. So
okay.
it's because our motion kind of changed, that's why it's now guns over karate.
Okay, I thank you, and you never thought
Madam
you'd be
Chair.
saying that either. So
I
yeah, I'm
If
sorry,
that
I'm
makes
not, for that reason, I certainly can't do it.
Okay,
It doesn't even meet with the policy that we were given initially.
I have a feeling anyways that the karate, there's children, and they have to be over the age of 16 as well by the things that Commissioner Lober drafted out. Can I have a motion and a second? I'm going to go ahead and call it.
Madam Chair?
For this to pass for this event, and I think he said for another policy to come back at a later time. Commissioner
Hang
Lober,
on,
that's
Madam
what-
Chair.
Hold on just a second. Commissioner Lober, is that what you said, sir? That you
Yeah, I
made a,
just-
hold on.
Yeah.
That you made a motion to pass this for this event, and then you were coming back with another policy, correct?
Partially.
Okay, Mike, I got it wrong. Are you changing your motion, or did I say?
No, I apologize.
Okay.
I thought I had stated, either along with making the motion or subsequent to it, that contemplated in the motion is that we're not going to displace anyone who's already on the books there. So that's not listed in the summary explanation and background, but based upon the concern that Commissioner Tobia raised, which I recognize is a valid concern, I'm not going to kick out kids for any other event any more than I would kick out the gun show for the kids. Whoever's there first is the one that gets it. So if that's something that we can make to work, great.
I don't
something
think,
that we can't make to work,
I don't
it
think
is what
you'll
it
be
is.
able to, because you put in there, nobody under the age of 16 what could be accompanied there unless accompanied by a parent. Miss Mary Ellen, let me ask you this. This is going on for a long period of time. Again, I don't know. I don't want to do pick winners and losers, but when big events come along, I don't mind it either. I think maybe the biggest heartburn for some of the commissioners is that we're not having time to hash this out on paper, so I understand that. How many children are there or people are there for the karate, and how long have they been there, and how much of the facility are they using? How hard would it be to displace them?
So I'm not sure as to the number of children that are enrolled. It's an ongoing program that is every Saturday, is my understanding, and they use a single room.
So Commissioner Lober, it's up to you here whether you want to keep a motion or not, but you might want to just go ahead and see if you can just bring it back next meeting and let them know that, from what I'm hearing the commissioners, if they had something a little bit more comprehensive as far as these concerns, that I'm guessing that they're telling me they would go ahead and pass it. So it's up to you, sir.
Yeah, the only way that I see it working today, and it just depends on what you all are comfortable with, there'd have to be 3 changes to what's put in there. One, obviously, I've already mentioned at some length here about not displacing anyone who's already on the books. The second would be, for that last bullet point, not permit any person under the age of under the age of 16. It would have to say in the gun show instead of in the community center.
Okay.
And then for the second bullet, where it says rent the entire community center, we would have to change that to no portion of the community center in which guns are present may be rented for another event, or if the portion of the community center which is intended for the gun show is being used by another event, it shall be prohibited, namely the gun show.
Okay, so why don't you kick this around and then bring it back next time if they really want to use it? I'm thinking they're going to hang in here till you get something up. I don't know that I have such a heartburn of displacing somebody who's there ongoing for a year.
I
If you
agree
have
with
a
you.
large event. So Commissioner Zonka, ma'am.
I was just going to say, it's clear that this is a one-off. It's clear that we didn't have the information, because I think that probably would have been, this wouldn't even have been brought to us if this commission knew about the karate class. I mean, because it kind of contradicts the motion. I'm not comfortable with language just introduced at a board meeting on the fly, and I'm definitely not comfortable with displacing the community center, community events, because again.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay, that's it. I was talking, but thank you.
Okay, so Commissioner Lober, are you okay with tabling this and bringing this back next time?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
But I would like to give Commissioner Zonka the opportunity. I didn't intend to interrupt her. It sounded like she'd stopped. So let's see if she has any more, Madam.
No, she
I'm
put
pretty
off
much
her
done.
light.
I just don't want to keep going in circles.
She took a look at me after she turned the light off, so I was pretty sure she was done. Okay, so I have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tobia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes 5-0. We'll see this back at the next meeting. Yeah, but just so you guys know, if you have small things in rooms and you have a large event coming, I don't have an issue with relocating them for one time if it's something big. So that's up to what you guys want to do. But all right, we are moving into county manager,
I have no report.
county attorney.
I have no action item, but with the board's permission, I would like to say thank you. If I can have a minute. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity and privilege to serve as county attorney.
By the way, we all voted yes.
And I would like to thank those of you who gave me a little push when I needed it, and those who gave me a chance. I really appreciate it. With the close call of Hurricane Dorian, the pandemic, dollars coming from D.C., it has been an interesting time, but I'm glad I got to do it. So I really thank you for the chance. And as for the individual commissioners in this role, I have really seen how hard your jobs are. I know you think about it nights, weekends, vacations, early morning. You have to take your personal views regarding smaller government, lower taxes. You have to listen to your constituents, their concerns, their complaints, and you have to take all of that and apply it to this big bureaucracy. And once you come up with an idea, you have to get 2 more people to agree with you. So I really appreciate how hard your jobs are. I don't think you get thank you enough, and I'd like to thank you very much for everything you do for Brevard County. And I'd also like to thank the county manager's office under Frank Abate's positive leadership at all times. That office has been tremendous. I'm going to miss their intellect and their humor, and I'll miss all of you as well. Thank you so much for the chance to work for you.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Commissioner Lober.
Yeah, just real briefly, on the last item, I just want to apologize because, frankly, until today, I had never heard or even had intimated to me that there was an existing event at the gun center for the same date in question. I've met with a number of staff members on a number of occasions, and that's something that kind of caught me off guard today as well. So to the extent that was, an unknown for you all, it was an unknown for me, too. I apologize about that. Obviously, we are where we are, and we'll hopefully have a good policy at the next meeting that we can look at.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Tobia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start off with a thank you and an apology. I want to express my thanks to the floor today and their recent decision to bring back a competent reporter to cover matters of local government. To say the quality of coverage of the matters degraded after Mr. Berman changed position would be a gross understatement, particularly regarding coverage of taxes in this month of September. Readers of the paper were grossly misled, including myself. Because of this misleading coverage, I'm forced to apologize to you and the city of Titusville. While they did in fact raise taxes under Florida law, they were upfront and transparent about doing so. So based on the Florida Today's coverage, I implied in a proposed letter to them that they had not been so. So for that, I apologize. I'll let the 5 Republicans on the Titusville City Council apologize for raising taxes. And on a personal note, my office, while we work extremely hard, we have a pretty tight relationship. Family, comes first. This job is very important, but that is number one. Unfortunately, a couple people in my office took that a little too seriously recently. And Billy Prasad and Bethany Iliff got engaged And I'm so excited for those two wonderful people. They could not be any happier. And for folks to be happy in my office is really, really exciting. I wish them all the best, and I'm sure they have many, many, many years of happy memories to make. So I know they posted on, I'm not announcing anything they hadn't posted on their Facebook page, so I want to put that. So if you see them in the hall or around, now you know why they're smiling. So thank you for that moment of personal privilege, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As many of you may already know, Mathers Bridge for the foreseeable future is stuck in the down position due to overuse. It's as big as it is, it's a finely tuned mechanism that depends on a lot of working parts, and the more frequently it's used, the quicker it breaks down. As many of you on the board remember, back on February 2nd of 2019, we approached the Coast Guard to allow us to open the bridge on the half hour, which would curtail the number of times it's used. Just for a point of reference, last month alone, it was opened and closed 1,400 times in 1 month. So it's no wonder the thing is broken down. We failed last time because the boaters convinced the Coast Guard that it was more convenient for them to be able to approach the bridge and have it open whenever they wanted, which is disingenuous, because if you travel the Intercoastal Waterway all the way down to Key Largo, there are a number of bridges that open on a timed element, strictly. And you have huge boats, 100-foot, 150-foot boats. We're not talking 20, 30, 50-foot boats. We're talking minor ships. They have to wait for that bridge to open on time. Those big boats are dealing with tides. Those big boats are dealing with wind. You don't have either one of those issues or three issues, because you don't have big boats traveling through Mathers Bridge. So I asked this board to allow Brevard County to make another run at the Coast Guard to have them alter this policy. Because right now this bridge is down, it's very costly for us to fix, and like I said, it's down for the foreseeable future. So at the next meeting, I will bring that information forward and ask support from you guys.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Zonka.
Yes, we've had a few people call our office and ask about our Els for Elders program. And for those of you who aren't aware, each year we collect a significant amount of gifts. I say gifts, but a lot of them are necessities, toiletries and stuff for our wards of the state every year. People want to know where their lists are, and Danielle Stern is working hard getting those together. So keep your eyes out, keep your email inboxes open, and look on the lookout for those lists. I know staff has been amazingly supportive. Our fire department has been amazingly supportive in helping us just generate usually enough toiletries that last these folks for a year. So again, thank you again in advance for all the help you're going to give us, and we look forward to getting that list out to you and getting those items to the people that need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I just want to throw out a piggyback. Congratulations to Billy, of course. And on the millage, Commissioner Tobia, thank you for that. I was going to kind of just let it go under the wire here, because the new reporter is just so nice. Those millages are tough to figure out when you're new at this and all the different taxes and everything. Just a note on that, though. The property values in North Brevard are so much lower that you have to raise those millages a little bit more to get enough money in. Actually, I wish they would go ahead and do a little bit more right now, because property values probably go up and we'd be able to have that tax number the same, but you have to have higher millages to get the same amount of tax dollars if the property values were worth more. So I just want to throw that to them. And Ms. Bentley, again, I just can't thank you enough for all that you've done for us, and always picking up for your cell phone. And Ms. Abby, we're going to need your cell phone now too, by the way. And you've just been such a blessing, keeping us out of trouble and helping us find a way to get it done. I've always loved it about you. We said, we want to get this done. How do we do it legally? and you found a way, because Commissioner Lober would give us other ways. But, so I appreciate that so much. I also want to throw out, as this commission, it's come up many times, you guys, we have great dynamics here. And I don't always like everything you tell me, when you think I've done something I shouldn't have, but I appreciate it so much. And I appreciate each one of you. And if you would vote more like I do, I'd be even happier. But besides that, I think you're a great group. You're doing your very, very best. And I really appreciate it when we kind of rub each other every once in a while in ways that is not so comfortable. But thank you guys for everything. And on this, I call this meeting adjourned. I'll see you guys at 2 o'clock today.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.